The alarm inside the dome was screaming before I even opened my eyes. I sat up on the cold metal bunk, heart pounding, and realized the sound was not a machine at all. It was a child, a small alien child, wailing so loudly that the walls seemed to shake with it. Guards were sprinting past my quarters, their long limbs moving in ways no human body could copy, their weapons drawn but pointed at nothing, because there was nothing to fight. Only a crying baby that nobody could calm down. I am Daniel Ashford, and 3 months ago, I was the only human left alive on a research outpost that the Velkari species had captured without firing a single shot. They did not kill me, they studied me. They kept me in a sealed section of their hive city, watched every breath I took, and treated me the way you might treat a strange animal that could either be dangerous or completely harmless. Nobody had decided which one yet. The Velkari were tall, silver-skinned, with eyes like polished glass that never seemed to blink. They ruled through a single queen, a being so powerful that her guards would rather die than let a stranger get within 10 feet of her. Their culture had no room for softness. Emotions, especially gentle ones, were treated as a weakness to be trained out of every citizen from birth. Children were raised by machines and caretakers who followed strict protocols, never comfort, never touch beyond what was required. That morning, something in those protocols had failed. I stepped out of my cell, and nobody stopped me. That alone told me how bad things had become. Guards who usually blocked my path with a single look were standing frozen near the nursery chamber, staring at the small creature thrashing on the floor. She could not have been older than 3 in human years, with tiny silver scales still soft and pale, and tears that glowed faintly blue running down her face. Machines hovered around her, offering nutrient injections and calming frequencies through speakers, but none of it worked. If anything, the sounds made her scream louder. I do not know what made me walk forward. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the memory of my little sister crying the night our parents told us we were moving across the country, and how nothing helped until I just held her hand and hummed some nonsense tune until she fell asleep. Whatever it was, my feet moved before my brain caught up, and I found myself kneeling beside a child who belonged to the most feared species in this part of the galaxy. A guard hissed something in their clicking language and raised a weapon toward me. I did not look at him. I kept my eyes on the child, whose small clawed hands were pressed over her ears like the noise of her own crying was too much for her to bear. I spoke softly, the way you speak to any frightened child, no matter what planet they come from. Hey there. Hey, it is okay. I am not going to hurt you. She flinched at first, ears folding back, but she did not scream louder. I kept talking, low and steady, telling her nonsense things about clouds and stars and how storms always pass no matter how loud they get. I did not know if she understood a single word, but tone matters more than language when someone is scared. I reached out slowly, palm open, letting her see my hand before I touched her shoulder. The guards tensed. I heard the whine of a weapon charging behind me. If I was wrong about this, if she saw my hand as a threat, I would not get a second chance to explain myself. She leaned into my hand instead. The wailing dropped to whimpers, then to shaky breaths. I shifted so I was sitting on the floor properly, and without thinking too hard about it, I pulled her gently into my lap, the way I used to hold my sister. She was lighter than I expected, and warmer, her small body trembling like a bird that had flown into a window. I started humming again, an old song my mother used to sing, nothing special, just something familiar to hold on to. Slowly, her breathing evened out. Her clawed fingers curled into the fabric of my shirt, and her eyes, wide and glassy, blinked up at me like she was trying to figure out what kind of creature would do something so strange as hold her without being ordered to. The chamber had gone completely silent. Every guard, every caretaker machine, every scientist watching through the glass walls above had stopped moving. I realized then that nobody in this entire hive had ever seen a child comforted this way. Not once. It was not part of their world. Then I heard it. A sound like 100 doors sliding open at once, followed by silence so complete it pressed against my ears. I looked up, and every single guard in the room dropped to one knee, heads bowed, weapons lowered flat against the floor. The queen had arrived. She was larger than any Velkari I had seen, her silver skin darker, almost black at the edges, marked with patterns that shimmered faintly, like starlight caught under glass. She did not walk so much as glide, and the air itself seemed to grow heavier the closer she came. I had heard stories from the scientists who guarded me, stories about what happened to anyone who displeased her, and none of those stories ended well for the other person. I froze, still holding her child in my arms, unsure whether standing up would be seen as respect or as a threat. My instinct screamed at me to let go, to back away, to do anything except sit there holding the most precious thing in this entire hive. But the child whimpered the moment my arms loosened, clutching tighter at my shirt, and I could not make myself pull away from her. So I stayed exactly where I was, heart hammering, and looked up at the queen. Her glass eyes studied me for a long moment, not with the coldness I expected, but with something closer to confusion, like she was seeing a puzzle she had never encountered before. She looked at her daughter, calm now, breathing softly against my chest, and then back at me. "I am sorry," I said quietly, my voice barely steady. She was scared. I did not know what else to do. The queen did not answer right away. She knelt down, which surprised every guard in the room, judging by the sudden intake of breath around us. Up close, she was even more striking, her presence heavy with authority, yet her movements toward her child were slow and careful, almost hesitant, like comfort was a language she had never been taught either. She reached out one long clawed hand and gently touched her daughter's back. The child stirred but did not cry, only sighed and pressed closer against me, completely at peace for the first time since I had entered the room. The queen's eyes lifted to mine again, and this time, I saw something shift behind that glassy surface. Something like understanding. Something like grief, for all the comfort her own kind had trained themselves out of giving. "Our children cry," she said, her translator device rendering her clicks into slow, careful words. "And we do not know why. We give them everything they need to survive, yet still they cry, and nothing calms them. We believed it was a flaw to be corrected, a weakness in the design." She looked down at her daughter, who had fallen fully asleep now, small chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. "You did nothing but hold her," the queen continued, and she stopped. I did not know what to say to that. I am not a diplomat. I am not a soldier. I was just a stranded researcher who acted on instinct because I could not stand to watch a child suffer, whatever species she belonged to. But something told me this moment mattered more than anything else I had done since arriving on this planet. "Where I come from," I said carefully, "we believe holding someone when they are afraid is not weakness. It is one of the strongest things a person can do. It tells them they are not alone." The queen was quiet for a long time. The whole chamber seemed to hold its breath with her. Then, slowly, she reached out and lifted her daughter from my arms with a gentleness that seemed almost foreign to her own body, cradling the small sleeping child against her chest, the way I had just shown her, awkward but trying. She looked at me once more, and before I understood what was happening, she leaned forward and pressed her forehead briefly against mine, a gesture I would later learn was reserved only for family, for those trusted completely within the hive. Then, to the shock of every single guard and scientist watching, she placed a soft kiss against my temple. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Guards exchanged glances too fast to hide their disbelief. I sat frozen, unsure if I had just been honored or if I had somehow broken every rule this species lived by. "You have given my daughter something none of us could," the queen said, straightening up with the sleeping child still held gently in her arms. "From this day, you are not a prisoner within these walls. You are kin." She turned and walked away, guards rising to follow her, whispers already spreading through the hive faster than any official announcement could travel. I stayed sitting on the cold floor for a long moment, trying to understand what had just happened, trying to understand how one small act of comfort had changed everything about my place in this world. I did not know yet what being kin to the Velkari Queen would mean for me, or what doors it would open, or what dangers it might bring from those who did not want a human standing so close to their throne. But in that moment, none of that mattered. All I could think about was a small crying child who had stopped crying simply because someone had chosen to hold her instead of walking away. Sometimes the smallest acts carry the greatest weight, and sometimes, across every star and every species, comfort speaks a language everyone understands.